Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Kalen DeBoer, Alabama, continue to roll on the recruiting trail, landing another commitment in the 2025 class. This one coming from five-star cornerback Dijon Lee from the state of California. Now, for the Alabama fans, I'll sell you on Dijon Lee in 30 seconds. Not that he really needs to be sold because you're talking about a five-star prospect, but Dijon Lee at 6'4", 190 pounds, one of the most physically imposing cornerbacks that we've seen in the last couple of recruiting classes. He couples that really large frame with an elite track and field background in the long jump, the triple jump, and the hurdles. You're talking about a cornerback that is as physically imposing as we've seen over the last couple of years, but he couples that with elite athleticism. He's an extremely smooth operator. You take a look at what you need in elite cornerbacks in the SEC. You need cornerbacks that can deal with some of these bigger, more imposing wide receivers, that is, in the SEC, but you also need cornerbacks that can run with some of the faster wide receivers in the SEC. Dijon Lee's a guy that can do it both, and he can operate in man coverage, press man, putting hands on opposing wide receivers, eating them up at the line of scrimmage, but also extremely dangerous in zone coverage, because you're talking about a cornerback that sitting in zone coverage, he's extremely hard to throw around. He takes up a lot of those throwing windows. He's twitchy. He's got long arms. This is, at least in my mind, a cornerback that just checks so many boxes for Alabama, especially in the SEC. And you start having the conversation regarding what this Alabama cornerback and secondary room is going to look like over the next couple of years. You go back to the 2024 class, Xavier Brown, five-star out of Mater Dei, Jalen Mbakwe, one of the more athletic cornerback prospects we've seen in a very long time, and then Xavier Mincy. Then you look at 2025 and say Chuck McDonald, Dijon Lee. I look at this secondary over the next couple of years in Tuscaloosa and say, name me that many better secondaries that we're going to see with Alabama over the next couple of years, which is becoming more and more important to have these freaky cornerbacks, because you continue to see wide receivers that are extremely dangerous in a multitude of different ways. You got to be loaded in the secondary room. Alabama building one of the more special secondaries that we see across the country, fired up to get into the film of Dijon Lee. Before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Alabama fans. It's been a blast talking this program. You guys know how impressed I have been with Alabama on the recruiting trail. All the support you guys have shown truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Dijon Lee. And again, you're talking about 6'4", 190 pounds, a guy that excels in the triple jump and in the long jump. What does that tell you? You love the frame, a guy that can match up with just about any wide receiver from a height and weight standpoint that you see in the country. But then you look at the track and field background and you look at the film and say, this is also a cornerback that is a smooth operator that can mirror wide receivers in man coverage. And that was probably your biggest question, right? At 6'4", it begs the question, how fluid are you in the hips? Can you mirror wide receivers and hold up in man coverage? The film goes a long way in answering how smooth Dijon Lee is in man coverage. And at the end of the day, it's just hard to find cornerbacks that have this kind of size that are as smooth as a guy like Dijon Lee. And you turn on the film and say, again, it's one of the more impressive film studies that you'll watch in this 2025 class. He excels in so many different things. This first rep on the far right side of your screen, we're going to go with this little press man coverage. And you're going to see his ability to really just stay right in the hip pocket of this wide receiver, an extremely smooth operator at the cornerback position. And then when that football's in the air, you're talking about 6'4", 200 pounds. Go up and make a play on the football. Dijon Lee certainly can do that. You go back and just watch this rep again, smoothing coverage. And when that football comes up in the air, we're turning our head and we're going up and making a play on the football. It is really hard to find a cornerback with this kind of size that moves it this way. And you look at the next rep and we talk about how good he can be in press man coverage, where he's putting hands on wide receivers, rerouting them at the line of scrimmage. You look at Dijon Lee in zone coverage. This is probably his best part of his game in terms of he just takes up so much space, and he's athletic enough to kind of bait quarterbacks into some really bad throws. You take a look here, far side of your screen here, working on the boundary, reading the quarterback's eyes, really, really smooth, taking that throwing window away. And he's essentially just baiting this quarterback to throw to the sideline to that deeper third. Dijon Lee with that 6'4" frame just gets up, makes a play on the football. This is a cornerback that in zone coverage can just take away so much of those throwing windows for opposing quarterbacks. And take a look at this rep here, just some feel at the cornerback position. We're keeping our eyes right on the quarterback in zone coverage, having a great feel for what's happening in front of us. And when it's time to fire downhill, break on the football, take it away, go the other way, Dijon Lee can do that as well. You take a look here again, press man coverage. We're going to put our long arms on this wide receiver, reroute at the line of scrimmage, squeeze him to the boundary. When this wide receiver tries to break it off, Dijon Lee is right there. He's physically imposing, but he's also smooth. He turns his head, finds the football, and makes a play. This is textbook kind of stuff for Dijon Lee. You are looking at a cornerback that, at least in my mind, couples the elite traits that you want in a cornerback with elite film. That's why he's a 5-star in this 2025 class. And you look at Alabama in the 2025 cycle, I've said it multiple times. I can't tell you how impressed I am with Kalen DeBoer. First year recruiting in the SEC. He's building a class that could really finish as the #1 class in the country with what it sounds like they are trending for on the recruiting trail. Guys like Kalen DeBoer, Ty Haywood, Caleb Cunningham. But you just look at this class right now and say, it checks so many boxes. You have 5-star quarterback Keelan Russell. I'm just going to start calling him a 5-star because there's no way in hell that Keelan Russell does not end this cycle as a 5-star prospect. But you start scrolling down and say Daryl Johnson, Deshaun Merritt, two of the most hyper-athletic linebackers that you see in this 2024 class. You can continue to scroll down. Derek Smith, now you partner him up with Dijon Lee and Chuck McDonald. That looks like a very good secondary room. You continue to scroll down and say, how about the offensive line? Probably the biggest question mark we had with Kalen DeBoer. Can he recruit the line of scrimmage? Jackson Lloyd, I just think, is a blue chip offensive tackle in the SEC. Micah DeBose, a guy that can play tackle and guard. Michael Carroll, a guy that's going to be a very good guard at the next level. And then potentially 5-star offensive tackle Ty Haywood. I mean, Alabama in this 2025 cycle, they're checking so many boxes that you want to see in this 2025 class. A massive effort from Kalen DeBoer and this Alabama coaching staff. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you all later. Peace.